Hello, everyone. The patch notes for the PTS have come out. So we're going to talk about them because, oh boy, there's a lot. So we have the Deadlands DLC, the final chapter of the Gates of Oblivion storyline. So this has some rather big changes. First off, we have the Deadlands DLC, we have some really cool stuff coming to the base game. Got some improvements to pretty much to a ton of the DLCs. Look at that list, it's crazy. Some itemization and combat changes that are really cool, and some decent base game changes. So let's get into it, starting with the new zone. Deadlands is suitable for characters of all levels. Begin your adventure by traveling to the city of Fargrave by using the Way Shrine to travel directly to the outskirts, or accepting the quest The Celestial Peliquin from the story section of the collection's UI. An exciting zone story, 2 delves, 2 world bosses, a new Wandering Executioner boss to give you the ultimate challenge. Wandering Executioner bosses. Okay, that's interesting. The Despoiler, the Anvil, and Kolgron the Razor Sworn are the chosen executioners of Mehrunes Dagon, patrolling the Deadlands in search of challenges to prove themselves to the Prince of Destruction. These dangerous enemies, designed to be fought with a group of players, are relentless in their pursuit across Mehrunes Dagon's domain. So we've got these weird world boss type enemies that just wander the map, probably similar to how the upstairs bosses of Imperial City work, now that I think about it. That's kind of cool. I like that. Though these guys feel like they're probably going to be the world events. In addition to the Deadlands, mingle with many denizens of Oblivion. Complete the zone stories in both Blackwood and the Deadlands DLC to unlock a bonus questline, the final confrontation with Mehrunes Dagon, Prince of Destruction. ESO, you've jumped the shark. We do not need to be able to beat down 3 different Daedric princes. This is getting ridiculous. Obtain new item sets found only in the Deadlands. As described below, a new outfit and housing reward for completing the select achievements and a quest content throughout the zone. Alright, so new item sets. This is half of the reason you guys are actually here, because I am an itemization person, and these are all pretty big. So, first off, Wretched Vitality. While in combat, applying a major buff or debuff to a target grants you 206 max mag and stam recovery for 15 seconds. While in combat, applying a minor debuff or debuff to a target grants you 130. This is, and then magic recovery, stamina recovery, weapon, and spell damage. This is interesting. And I'm not sure what to think of it. Because it's good resource regeneration, and getting, magicka and stamina recovery for 15 seconds isn't bad, especially on a healer where we're throwing out major and minor buffs and debuffs like candy. But I don't know. I could see this being decent. I don't think it actually makes the cut over a lot of the other sets we run, because it's selfish, right? Instead of adding another buff or debuff, it's just more sustain for us. I could see this as a sustain set on healers, but I don't think we need it. Next we have Deadlands Demolisher. Your bash attacks. Okay, I should be starting at the beginning of these as normal. 1096 maximum stamina, weapon and spell damage, 1096 maximum stamina. Your bash attacks deal 935 more damage. When you bash, you also deal physical damage in a cone, interrupting all enemies hit. This effect can occur once every 2 seconds and counts as bash damage. I feel like this phrase could be used to do something crazy. I don't know what. But this is a cool little set. It feels sort of in a similar vein to how Deadlands Assassin works, in that it's got a use, but that use is unclear. But yeah, this is a cool little set, and I like the idea of it. And I kind of want to see more. And finally, we have Iron Flask. Max health, armor. When you drink a potion while in combat, reduce your damage taken by 12% for 20 seconds. You know what? I'm okay with this. This is kind of similar to like a fortified brass, Torog's Pact, or to some extent Armor of the Seducer, in that it's a really good started crafting set for tanks. Like seriously, this is cool. This is very cool. And I want to see more of this. I like crafted sets like this because it's very simple. Max health, armor, and drinking a potion gives you a bonus effect. That's super simple. That's super easy to wrap your head around, but it's also a really good effect. Like it's straight up less damage taken, which is just more survivability, especially for newer tanks that might need that. And 20 seconds is a long time for essentially an extra major protection, which is good. And finally, we get into the Overland. Again, these are the crafted sets. We haven't gotten to the Overland stuff yet. So first off, we have Eye of the Grasp, which is just such a name. Maximum magicka, weapon, and spell damage, critical chance. When you deal critical damage, generate 7 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. I don't know what to think of this, because it's probably not as good as something like Bosses or Sororia or Diamonds or, but it's cool. And I like the idea of just this, of putting this on an already existing crit build and just dumping out a ton of ultimates. This on a Necro could be funny. I think it's bad, but I think it could be funny. Yeah, I kind of like it. It's a cool little ability. You want to pair this with something that gives critical chance already. So if you're throwing this on a medium build, you run it with Leviathan, or on a light build, you run it with Mother's Sorrow or Medusa. But yeah, this is kind of cool. Finally, next we have Hexos Ward, which is critical chance, weapon and spell damage, critical chance. Dealing critical damage with a direct damage ability grants you a damage shield that absorbs 8,000 damage for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. Stamina Nightblades rejoice. We have even more medium armor. We have even more medium armor sets for a damage shield. Unkillable solo Nightblades continue to be a thing. Yay! I actually do like this set, as sarcastic as I'm being right now. It's a very, very good, like, you don't get to kill me set, because it's crit chance, weapon damage, crit chance, which is good stat lines. You pair this with another crit chance set on a Stam Blade, and this is just a really nice, like, extra solo tool. This plus Ring of the Pale Order plus what's the set called? I mean, easy answer would be this plus Leviathan plus Ring of the Pale Order plus Slimecraw, and just run around critting things and never dying. That could be a very fun thing to play with. I like this set as like a stick in the fight set for medium armor characters. I might put it on my Stam Orc and mess with it on there, because it seems like it could be fun. And finally, we have Kind Marcher's Cruelty. Maximum health, stamina recovery, and armor. And then 5, when you deal direct damage, you apply one of 5 random major debuffs to enemies within 8 meters of you for 18 seconds. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds, and only if an enemy is in range. Eligible debuffs are Major Breach, Major Cowardice, Major Defile, Major Maim, and Major Vulnerability. Okay, we need to pause for a moment. So, we need to talk about what this does, because this is kind of silly. So, first off, for those of you who paid attention, this is a aggressive version of Daedric Trickery, which is hilarious and I love it. This line is less useful for what we want it for, but this is this is a thing of beauty. All right, so I need to double check what all of these do. Combat and gear. Is there a thing that has like buffs and debuffs? Nope. Okay. So major let's go off what I know. Oh, Vicosa gives that. I don't remember how to spell Vicosa. I think it's a K. There we are. Okay. So, Major Breach. This we tend to apply already, but this is an AoE means to apply it because it's all enemies because it's enemies within 8 meters. So that implies that it is all enemies within 8 meters of you. So, Major Breach is penetration. It's what you get. It's what we're getting off of. Okay, we're going to do this in the most complicated way, in a super complicated way, because I don't know how else to do it. So Major Breach is physical and spell resist. Debuffs. Do you have a place that just says that just has debuffs? Okay. Can I? Is this a section I can click? Major Vuln. Okay. We have okay. I am this is a set that is taking some time for me to process. Uh Maim. What gives Major Maim? Oh, I know how to pull up what gives Major Maim. I think there's a set. Okay. Lady Thorn. Okay. Cowardice, Defile. Oh, Defile. I need Defile as well. Neither of those will do it, though. Okay, once again, uh, we use the old sites. Okay, Durox has it. I knew there was something. Okay. That took a little bit to set up, but so this gives 105 random major debuffs to enemies within 8 meters for 18 seconds, which you probably aren't thinking is a lot. But let's talk about which ones it gives. Breach, Cowardice, Defile, Maim, and Vulnerability. So we'll do these in order that it lists them, which is Breach, Breach, Cowardice, Defiled, Maim, and Vuln. So Major Breach is reduced physical and spell resistance. So this is a pretty common debuff. If we go down the list of things that can apply it, Crushing Weapon isn't often used, but it is a thing. Deafening Roar is a thing that you'll have on your werewolf. This is your major debuff. As well as a decent defensive ability and an offensive ability because it gives you major savagery. Deep Fissure also gives it. This is a magica skill for Warden. I don't know, pseudo spammable. Elemental Drain, Mark Target, Noxious Breath, Pierce Armor's the big one that everyone thinks about. Caltrops does it, Boneyard does it. The point is, a lot of things apply Breach. And also, he can get it from Night Mother's Gaze. So, Breach isn't that big of one because as a tank, we're already applying it with Pierce Armor, which is major and minor breach already to give a huge amount of resistance. Don't play the ad, please. Next up, we have Major Cowardice. This one is actually really cool because so we're getting one of these every 8 seconds, basically. While an enemy is in range, and they apply for 18, so we can get rotations of, we can more or less get a rotation of these, because I'm assuming it works the same as the existing set that does this. That's a words are hard. Stop playing ads. I don't want you to play ads. Stop playing ads. The existing Daedric Trickery, which only applies things that you don't already have, so you can get just these stacks of Daedric Trickery, or in this case, these stacks of all of these major debuffs on ad pulls. This might be our ad pull clearing set, because getting a major breach in that AoE, getting major cowardice in that AoE, getting major maim in that AoE, and major vulnerability in that AoE are going to be huge. So we now have an AoE source of cowardice, which is good, because this is damage reduction. The only way we had previously to gain this was Vycosa, which when we bashed, we frightened, applying major cowardice, lowering weapon and spell damage. That's not that. This was already a pretty decent damage reduction monster set, and now it got better. And now we have a way to do this in an AOE upon dealing damage. This might actually be my new recommended starting tank set, because it's AOE, breach, cowardice, defile, maim, and vuln, and we haven't even talked about these last 3 in detail yet. We're just on these first 2. This is amazing. This is rather large for ad packs. It's less important on bosses, but being able to get the rest of these on bosses, with one possible exception, is still good. Cowardice, major cowardice. Having another source of major cowardice is awesome. This means we might not need Vycosa as much. We'll still probably run Vycosa, because Vycosa is more consistent, it's single target, and we can control when it procs, so we can guarantee that we have that damage reduction in phases where we want it. But this is still a very good thing to have on that list. Next, we have Major Defile. Stop giving me ads. So this is healing received and health recovery, which this is super unimportant in PvE. I could see this being an interesting thing to have to throw out in PvE, in PvP, but you've got other ways to do it. So Dragonknight standard applies it, which is unimportant. We run this for its damage, not for anything else. These are PvP morphs, right? That's all these are. So this isn't as useful to us in PvE, but it's still like, again, there are situations where it could be useful, but for the most part, we don't care. We're here for the other four. Next we have Major Maim, which reduces their damage done. That's good. uh, that was half the reason to run Lady Thorn. It's what Void Bash does. It's what Banny's Torment does. So this is more survivability for you, in addition to the survivability from Cowardice. So we have 2 damage buffs, 2 survivability buffs, and something that's a waste. If you get the Defile first, you're sad. If you get any of the rest of these first, you're happy. This is the only wasted one, but I think it's still fine. That said, we are getting we would be getting this off of Frost Clench. Or Frozen Device if we're a Warden. But we would be getting this off of Frost Clench, which a lot of tanks are running these days anyways, because it's Maim and a Taunt. And Brittle, which is a lot of really good things in one skill. And finally, we have Major Vulnerability. Before this, there was exactly one source of Major Vulnerability, which was Colossus. We now have a second source of Major Vulnerability in an AoE in a set. This might be enough to convince some people to run this set just in general. Because having an AoE Major Vulnerability is just kinda good. Right? Like, this is no joke. This is half the reason that people want to run Necromancer. And now we have it on a set. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's... Oh my gosh. Kind Marcher's Cruelty is, I think, the best Overland set we've seen yet. And that's kind of... Is that really saying something? Yeah, that's... I don't know that that's saying much, but it's the best Overland set we've seen yet. I think this is better. This might actually be better than some crafted sets. I mean, it's better than most crafted sets because, let's be real, most overlaid and crafted sets are decent for starting, but you want to replace them with dungeon and trial stuff as soon as you can. With some notable exceptions. All right, and that is that is the itemization part, which is, you know, half of what I'm good for. So we have the Spalder of Ruin outfit style as an antiquity. Oblivion Explorer's head wrap is the walk-in achievement. There is a hat that is found in antiquity. There's a memento obtained by earning the Hopeful Rescuer achievement. Dursail Villa quest can give an outfit. Face mask and body markings are required for completing the quest. A reward for completing the quest against El Hope, which I'm guessing is the one of the end ones. Runt is for Hope Spring Eternal, and Hero of Fulgrain is a die. Hero of Fulgrain is completed title awarded for Fulgrain. Havokrell Hunter is awarded for the Bane of Havorkrell. Catalyst Rivener for completed Hopeful Rescuer. We saw that up here as well. It gives a memento. So this is probably the end of the storyline, if I had to guess, because they like giving a memento and a title for that. Eternal Optimist. I like how much hope there is in here, because we're fighting the Daedric Prince of Hope. It's funny to me. Champion of the Deadlands is awarded for completing Eternal Optimist. Ardent Hope is awarded for the Friends of the Kalmur. The Wretched title is Spire Sleuth. We have a title called The Wretched that we can earn. That's kind of cool. I like that from a roleplay perspective because being able to have a character titled The Wretched and have them be this like in just prisoners or soul shriven style seems cool. It makes me like want to do this Dark Souls looking character. That'd be fun. Ancient Daedric motif chapters and the associated item can be excavated with antiquities from the Deadlands. Okay, we've got an ancient Daedric motif now. Okay. Cool. That'll be expensive as all get out. House Hexos motif chapters and the associated items at nickel can be earned as rewards for completing dailies. So here's our motif style, here's our quest style. New furnishing, Deadlands and Fallgrave furnishing plans. Modest selection of home goods, Deadlands themed achievement furnishings, Deadlands themed antiquity furnishings, including a visually striking enchanting table. Ooh, fancy enchanting table's nice. New Deadlands structural furnishing plans, which can occasionally be found while completing Daedric portals in the Deadlands. Armory system. Okay. This is one of the two big things that they announced on stream that we need to talk about. Like, so this is cool. So, introducing the Armory, a new system that helps relieve the friction between switching or experimenting with your character's builds. The Armory allows you to save any of your custom character builds, remembering your gear, attributes, abilities, champion points, and even if you are a werewolf or vampire. You can then effortlessly load any of these saved builds in an instant. The Armory is free to all players. To get started, simply obtain the free Armory station from the Crown Store and place it in any of your homes. There is also an Armory Assistant available for a separate purchase to accessorize outside. You cannot save or load builds while interacting with an Armory station without interacting with an Armory station or talking to an Armory Assistant. Curated item set drops. Bosses and reward chests for arenas and incursions will now preferentially drop set items that have not yet been unlocked in your item set collections. Most bosses in the game, along with reward chests for arenas and incursions, will now preferably drop set items that have not yet been unlocked in your item set collections. These sources will only drop set items that they can normally drop. The ways to acquire a particular item set are unchanged, but it should be much easier to find items you have not yet unlocked. Set items looted from treasure chests, containers, or from non-boss monsters are not curated. So, what does this mean? So these two changes are huge in ways that we need to talk about, and we're going to start with the Armory system. So for those of you who play on non-PC, first off, you have my sympathies. Add-ons are a godsend. But even for those of you that play on this is Dressing Room, but better. Now, it is somewhat limited. You start out with 2 slots and can buy up to 5. But this saves everything. Gear, attributes, abilities, champion points, werewolf, vampire. So, we can have a healer setup with 64 points in magicka, all of its sets, all of its champion points, a tank setup with 64 points in health, all of its sets, all of its champion points, etc., and a DPS setup with 64 points in stamina and all of those things, all on the same character. And one of them can be a werewolf, and one of them can be a vampire, and it auto-saves. That's insane. That's awesome. I love it. Now, they are, doing standard. We need to make money off of this edition. As I said earlier, you'll be starting out with 2, and can only gain and have to buy the rest off the Crown Store. There is also the Assistant, which if you don't want to teleport to your home to do these changes, you need. I don't think this is as important as the Merchant or Banker are, But I do think it's rather large. I do think it is nice to have. The real question is when we get a armorer bird and armorer cat, because we need an Alfiq version and a crow version of every assistant, right? I think they'll let Glass Shrug be in store for a while. And you cannot save and load builds without interacting with one. One thing that they mentioned on stream that is not mentioned in the patch notes, the assistant is not available once you have entered a trial or timed arena event. So you can't switch in the middle of, you can't use this to switch in the middle of Maelstrom without leaving, or in the middle of a trial without leaving. I think one thing that they could do is, that would be nice, is if they put an armory because you know how every trial has crafting stations in front of it, in case you need to deconstruct stuff, or you need to upgrade stuff, or you need to make more potions, etc., etc. I think it would be cool if they put an armory station in trials. That'd be a nice little addition for people who don't have anyone in their friends list or in their guild with an armory assistant to be able to switch out setups. And it is worth noting that the armory station is free on the Crown Store. So you can pick it up and put it in your house for free. So everyone can use this system, but you'll get more out of it the more money you throw at the screen. Which I think I'm okay with. Again, companies need to make money. I think it depends on how much these are going to cost, right? If they're ridiculously expensive, I don't think I'm going to want it, but if they're cheap, then if they're relatively cheap, I'm assuming this is going to be the 5,000 that every merchant is, every assistant is, but I mean, it's not bad. Curated item, but yeah, I think armory is like a decent thing to have. I like that it's in the game. I don't think it replaces dressing room because dressing room is too good inside of trials to be, to not use, right? Like we can't I think the big thing that armory gives that dressing room doesn't is attributes, abilities, and champion points. So, one thing that they did mention with armory is that it can swap morphs as well. So, if you're running, say, you can swap between the magicka and stamina morph of a skill if you want one setup to be magicka and one setup to be stamina based. Which I think is cool and interesting, and I like the idea of. And the fact that it can save werewolf or vampire means that you can essentially have the ability to toggle vampire on or off depending on what you're doing. So if, for example, like me, you have a character that you want to maintain a vampire for RP reasons, but you don't want them to be a vampire when you bring them into a trial or dungeon, then you can have a setup that has vampire toggled off and have a setup where vampire is toggled on. It is also worth noting that the 2 slots are per character, not per account. So, which I mean should be obvious, but I think it's worth mentioning anyways. But yeah, I like armory. I think this is a really neat addition to the game, and I think it's another quality of life thing that I'm happy that they put out. Now let's talk about this. So, bosses and reward chests from arenas and incursions will now preferably drop set items that have not yet been unlocked. So, this means that when you're grinding Ark's Consortium, and you have every Medusa piece but that frickin' Inferno Staff, the Inferno Staff is now guaranteed to drop from Medusa. Now, this doesn't mean that if you're missing stuff only from Medusa, that means that if you get everything but the Inferno Staff, you will get the Inferno Staff the next run. But there is now a hard cap as to how many runs it takes to finish out collections. So, for me, for example, I'm missing like 3 weapons from Drake Kingslayer in Fungal Grotto. Not that any of the sets from Fungal Grotto are things that most people will particularly care about filling out, but if there's actual sets you want in another dungeon, there is now a hard cap to how many times you have to run a dungeon before everything is collected. Which means that I am probably going to use this as an excuse to fill out all of my sets and just have every at least base game set fully collected. This is rather a rather big like advantage, which I thoroughly enjoy. Uh and yeah, so it's arenas and incursions. So incursions, I believe arenas and incursions means that dungeons, trials, uh world bosses and event and world events like dolmens or deadlands portals will have this restriction, whereas overland chests won't. So if you're still missing, say, a perfected Sororia Fire Staff, and that's basically the only thing you're missing, once this goes live, go run Cloud Rest. This is actually like a seriously huge quality of life improvement to go along with item set collections that I am 100% all for, and there is basically no reason to be against this. Unless you're just a sadist who enjoys watching people suffer. This is amazing, and I love that it's now in the game. It also means that we can very easily have a lot. We can easily like clean out the list of what we're missing from arenas. No more duplicate Maelstrom ice staves every time I run Maelstrom. Uh, I can clean out the rest of the list. Uh, There's also a summary page for item set collections, high-level summary for your progress towards collecting every dropped item set in the game. Every major category has a progress bar to help guide you in finding the set items you're still missing. That's kind of cool. New mythic items. Update 32 has 3 new mythic item sets obtained through the antiquity system. Note that Greymore is still acquired. The Markin Ring of Mystery. 100 weapon and spell damage, and 1,517 armor for each 3 set bonus active on the wearer. Includes any 3 or 5 piece set which you are wearing a minimum of 3 pieces. For example, wearing 3 pieces agility counts as 1, wearing 3 pieces of Hundings also counts as a 3 set bonus on the wearer as would wearing 5 pieces. Okay, this is interesting. So we could theoretically, if we can figure out how to do it, run 369. No, so this I think would be better if there were more 3-piece sets that weren't only weapons and jewelry. Which I feel like is a statement that requires a little bit more explanation. So here we go. Not streaming services. Nope. Online hub. So if we look at not skills, if we look at sets, and a lot of these are PvP sourced, so we're gonna just go here. So we have things like agility, willpower, blessings of the potentates, eagle eye, endurance, grace of the ancients, etc., that are these 3-piece sets. Vengeful Leech is another good one, and Wrath of the Imperium, which is also getting changed. So agility is stamina and a good load of weapon damage. Willpower is is a magical equivalent to agility, and I don't remember what endurance is. I think it's health regen. Yeah, endurance is maximum health recovery. So all in all, not bad. Potentates is damage from players, and then ultimate cost. Eagle Eye is weapon critical, and then weapon critical from range direct damage. Endurance is maximum health and health recovery. We just talked about that. Grace of the Ancients is just resources. Vengeful Leech is maximum health, and then killing an enemy gives you health, magicka, and stamina back. This might actually be the best of them. Anyways, Wrath of the Imperium is spell critical, and then spell critical for your range and direct damage attacks, which is, you know, Eagle Eye, but magicka. Uh, so, but running this, a 3-piece, a 5-piece, and then and then another 2 probably might actually be like decent. Like this plus Vengeful Leech plus or maybe not Vengeful Leech. Maybe it's just agility. This plus agility plus a 5-piece, like, why am I thinking in Stam? This is I mean, so this is a cool set and I like it. But the problem is these have to compete with 2 things. With 3 different things. Death Dealer's Fet and Harpooners in group content, and Ring of the Pale Order in solo content. And it is hard to argue that these make that cut. I do like the Ring of Majesty. It feels very cool, and it's more encouragement for 3-set builds. But the problem with 3-set builds is if we look at this is an example of basically of almost all of the 3-set builds in the game, with one notable exception. Armor of the Trainee is any piece. It's all weights, all weapons, and jewelry of all pieces. So you could run 3 pieces of Armor of the Trainee, 3 pieces of one of these, maybe Vengeful Leech, and then this, and then 3 pieces of another set. Which would be I think the high, or 3 pieces of 2 5-piece sets, which I think might be the highest value we can get. No, because 3, 6, because we have 12 slots, because 7 body, 3 jewelry, and then 2 weapons. So we could run 1 3-piece, one of these 3 pieces to get the full benefit. So something like agility or willpower, for assuming we're thinking a DPS or a solo build. So we run agility, including one of our weapons. So 2 weapons and a ring of jewelry. So we're of agility. The Ring of Majesty. 3 pieces of like Hundings. 3 pieces of another DPS set. And then I think a 1-piece monster to fill in. I don't remember. I am not like mentally doing all of the math here. This feels like it is more work than it's worth to try and optimize for, but it is very cool, and I do think that if they want this to be good, they need to implement more 3-piece sets. Give us more stuff like Armor of the Trainee. Give us these weird 3-piece overland sets or weird 3-piece body sets that we can use to make Ring of Majesty cool. Because don't get me wrong, I love this effect. It's a very cool effect. The problem is how the problem is we're losing a lot of really big 5-piece sets to run Ring of Majesty. And I don't think that 200 damage is better than, no, not 200. Yeah, I don't think that 200 damage is better than either Kilt or Death Dealers, and I don't think that 2000 armor is better than Ring of the Pale Order. Now, I think it does find a nice little midpoint between the two of being decently good at extra survivability and decently good at extra damage, but I don't think that it's quite there. And I think that if they print more support for 3-piece set builds, I think Ring will be better. But I think as of right now, Ring isn't that great. That said, I do want this set to be good because it is a very cool effect. All right, and now let's talk about the other weird one. I say other weird one. All three of the mythics are weird this time. Belharza's Band. Increase the damage of your light attacks by 1,186. When you deal damage with consecutive melee light attacks, grant a stack of Temper for 10 seconds up to 5 stacks maximum. When you perform a fully charged heavy, consume Temper and deal physical damage per stack to enemies in a line after a 1-second delay, stunning them for 3 seconds if 5 stacks are consumed. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I don't know what to do with this. Like, it's a decent burst damage set. This feels like it's meant to be a PvP thing because it's got a decent stun. It probably deals pretty decent damage. And if it's occurring every 4 seconds and scaling off the higher, it can occur every 4 seconds. And we can build up stacks with lights and consume them with a heavy. So it's light, heavy to get the combo off. This could be interesting. I just don't know what to do with it. And then we have Spalder of Ruin, which this is the set that I'm not positive about. Well, my voice just went. I've been talking for 45 minutes. Spalder of Ruin. Activating Crouch toggles on and off a 12-meter Aura of Pride. Up to 6 allies in the aura gain 260 weapon and spell damage. Reduce your weapon and spell damage by 130 for every group member benefiting from your Aura of Pride. So 130 reduced weapon and spell damage. Huh. Is this a utility for healers? Because we crouch, equip it, uncrouch. We now have an Aura of Pride. I mean, we're losing 130, but 6 allies gain 260, and if we're standing in a stack, that is a pretty good buff. This might be worth running. Like, first off, in dungeons, this might be worth running because, you know, dungeoning. We only have 4 people. We only have up to 4 standing in it, so we're only losing 600 weapon and spell damage. That's still a lot. Yeah, we lose like 600 weapon and spell damage. I think it's closer to like 530. No, it's like 520, which is a lot. But we're giving out nearly twice that. No, it's only 3 other people. So it's 390, but we're giving out a lot more than that, and specifically we're giving the 2 DPS more than that. This might be worth dungeoning with. Granted, I said that about Scorion's Feast, and no one dungeons with Scorion's Feast, which makes me a little bit sad. But these are all like interesting and weird, and I like that. I don't think we needed another Harpooner's Waiting Kilt mythic, because Harpooners is busted. Update 32, Dark Anchors and Sky Shards now appear on your in-game map. They will display as active in zone maps when they are engaged, similar to Harrow Storms and Abyssal Geysers. Sky Shards now appear on the map and compass when approached, similar to other points of interest like way shrines and set stations. Excuse me. And additionally, the zone guide will now direct you to the closest unacquired Sky Shard when you have completed the other objectives in the zone. There are 2 new houses as well. New combat music drop down in the settings menu under audio. You will now be able to decide if you want to hear all combat music, only boss music, or no combat music at all. There is now a Siege Stomper emote from Gladiator Proofs. I am not smart enough to understand what this is. On a DDLS compatible NVIDIA graphics card with compatible drivers, you will see these new options available in video settings in the anti-aliasing dropdown. I feel like, so this is a graphics thing that I don't know what means. If you do know what this means, feel free to explain it down in the comments, and I will pin that comment. But I have no idea what this means or what it does. And they're testing the Undaunted celebration, which always breaks when it goes live. Always. This always breaks. I have never seen it not break. Alright, for this, we're offering 2 templates. One max level, with all the new item sets placed directly in your inventory. And a level 10 and a level 25 with all the usual items. Both templates will place you just outside of Fargrave in the Deadlands. Crafted sets in Blackwood are now available in the PTS templates for in the armor, jewelry, and weapon. Fix an issue where you could cause template characters to be placed in the tutorial starting area even when skip tutorial was selected. Okay. When item set containers in the PTS refer to a non-existent rose petal bastion rather than the actually existent red petal. Cyrodiil item sets are available to the new PTS template, have been broken up into 4 additional bags: light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, and weapon and jewelry only, to make finding specific sets easier in the UI. Known issues. Bosses in False Martyr's Folly are not currently dropping any loot. Okay. And Dagon's Scalding Giblet cannot currently be acquired. This will be fixed in the next week's patch. Housing. General. UI images and loading screens associated with the new houses are still in progress and will appear incomplete or blank. Cool. Alright. Blackwood fixes and so now we get into the really, really boring part, which I might make this part a separate video, because this is already an hour long, and I kind of want to get to the really cool stuff way at the bottom here. So I think I'm going to divide this into 2 videos. So this middle part will become a separate video talking about all of the little changes to all of these areas. So that will be coming out later. I'm going to get this one set up and done, and then I'll start recording that one. Alright, so let's move on to talking about the other cool stuff they added, because they're not done adding cool stuff. So, combat and gameplay. Critical damage and healing now has a hard cap of 125%. Note that this value cannot go beyond 125%, but your critical strikes will not... This value can go beyond that, but critical strikes will not deal more than 125% damage or healing in total. Currently, critical chance continues to remain the best stat in the game by a large margin in PvE due to no effective cap on the bonus, and a large array of sourcing of critical damage and healing amplifications. Rather than nerfing the values of these sources across the board and hurting build choices that aren't overperforming, We've decided to add a ceiling to the effectiveness of critical potency to ensure the stat remains powerful, but doesn't continue experiencing power creep as we add more options to build for it in the future. This should have a very low impact on an unoptimized build, while also reining in the groups who are coordinating many sources of these bonuses and producing extraordinary results of damage or healing. Okay, so that is a lot of words, but what does that mean? So, in a lot of the super optimized trial groups, you have people aiming to maximize critical damage, which we do in a couple of ways. Each character has their so DPS have their own bring their own minor force buff. Healers, supports will give major force with Warhorn. We wear Harpooner's Wading Kilt to give us another 14% or another 10%, etc., etc. And it starts at 50, and then people wear the Shadow Mundus if they have enough crit for an additional crazy amount of critical chance. And yeah, I don't know exactly what this means. I believe that this means that so critical attacks currently deal 150% of your damage. I don't know if this means that critical attacks now deal 125, or that some groups were managing to stack it to consistently be getting 200 plus critical damage on crits. I don't know if this is a hard cap of the 125 from the plus 50%, or if it's a hard cap of 125 from the 150 that it is currently. If it's the former, then I'm perfectly okay with this change. If it's the latter, then I don't know how we're going to deal damage anymore. That's something we're going to have to play with and find out. I will have to both play with this and see what the more experienced players that are playing with it come up with for this change. Because I don't know at the time of recording this. I have looked at the patch notes. I have not yet gotten onto the PTS to play with them. So we'll see where this goes. Bash got reworked. It now has a shorter cooldown. And a lower cost to ensure that it is 1/3 of a melee spammable. It now scales with a mixture of physical and spell resist +1 to ensure that if you have no physical and spell resist, it still connects. Reduce the cooldown phase after activating Bash that prevents you from casting it. Other active abilities, 233 down from 700 to smooth gameplay, so Bash weaving is a thing again. Or is easier now, I guess. Fix an issue where some proc conditions could unintentionally succeed when removing negative ground effects. And the damage can now trigger enchantments and poisons. So bashing is better for DPS, is what this reads. I mean, cool. I don't really have a lot to say about this. Bash got reworked. Bash is better now. Seems fine. Fixed an issue where the caster of an ability that using the new area of effect technology would be dismounted upon entering the area of their ability. Let this be a reminder that technology often affects us in ways we can never expect. I didn't come here to be given existential dread, Genie. Don't do this to me. The following abilities use the new area of effect system introduced in Update 30. Ash Cloud and Morphs, Meteor and Morphs, Stampede, and Volley and its Morphs. Okay, and now we get oh no, this isn't the big thing yet. That's further down there. Abilities and item sets that heal, deal damage, or restore resources on a set frequency while in an area of effect will no longer display visual effects on each impact. for targets in their area. Below are a list of affected sources: Aegis Caller, Roaring Thunder, Boss Ice Curse, Blood Mist, Wedding Seas, blah 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 blah. So there's a lot of things here, but basically this is just clutter reduction, right? For things that we did admittedly already run. Grant Healing, Elemental Storm, Impaling Shards, Life Amid Death, Secluded Grove, Sentinel, Sleet Storm, Wrath of Elements. These are all things that we did already, but it's just adding less clutter. Because less clutter is less particle effects, and less particle effects is happier times. And better running, and less server errors. But the enchantments poisoned in item sets were not properly labeled as procs. Okay. Fixed an issue where some abilities experienced erratic visual behavior when cast by female characters with a bow equipped. That is a weirdly specific bug. Okay. Cool. Fix an issue where abilities that bounce between targets would fail to generate visual effects when reflected. Interesting. And trying to mount up while teleporting to a way shrine will no longer prevent you from mounting up after the teleport finishes. And now we have class changes. Dragonknight got buffs. Dragonknight got a lot of buffs. Let's talk about them. So Combustion now gives him more resources back and has a 500 millisecond cooldown to make up for both the above increase and a massive buff to Charged, which is something we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, Charged got a huge buff. Charged is now actually like probably good as a DPS setup again. Inferno, this ability and the Cauterized Morph now grant both Major Prophecy and Savagery rather than only Major Prophecy. Again, they're trying to move towards better hybrids and more play as you want sort of gameplay, which is cool. Flames of Oblivion now launches 3 fireballs, up from 2 since it lost its original unique morph function, because the base now grants both. Lava Whip. This ability and its morphs now scale off of your highest defensive stat rather than exclusively Magicka-based stats. May this finally end the fiery and age-old debate over getting a stamina whip. Okay. So this is kind of cool. So what does this do? It's higher Magicka. It is now a spammable for stamina DKs if they want a Magicka costing spammable, or a Magicka costing burst skill when running Molten Whip. I don't know if they're actually going to use this, but so they make this joke here, but I don't think this will actually change. I don't think this actually changes the fact that you don't run this on a Stam DK, because it costs Magicka, and you want like maybe 1 or 2 abilities in your entire rotation that cost Magicka, and we already have one of these from Flames of Oblivion or Cauterize. But I digress. So, the next one we have is Flame Lash. Fixed an issue where this morph did not apply off balance to targets who were immobilized but not already off balance. The override Power Lash now heals immediately rather than over 2 seconds, but its total healing per cast has been reduced. However, it no longer has a 3-second cooldown. Ballerinas are back. Let's look at that. Lava Whip, Flame Lash, and Molten Whip. These are our 2 morphs. So this is the morph that I don't currently use on my Dragonknight, but might switch to. So targeting an off-balance or immobilized enemy changes this ability into Power Lash, allowing you to lash an enemy at half cost for more damage and heal you for a portion of health over 2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 3 seconds. So now we can continuously cast this as long as they're off balance. So if we can put them off balance, we can then just spam, 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 spam. which might mean that DKs now want a source of off balance, which means that we might end up. I might have to go back to a lightning staff on healer. Sad days. Very sad days. Anyways, nah, they can figure it out on their own. They're big DPS, right? They're big boy DPS. Oh, it sets them off balance, so they generated it themselves. Perfect. Lash, ballerina, 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 ballerina. Because power lash is the one that makes you spin around. Is the variant that makes you spin around in the circle. This might actually be decent. We get to do ballerina things on DKs again. That's fun. Molten Whip now lasts 10 seconds, up from 5, to help it feel way less stressful to use in a rotation, and allow for activations of burst at the perfect moment. So, the Dragonknight morph options felt too similar as they both increased damage of the spammable and dealt with 3-second cadences. Molten Whip now stands out more as a build-up for a deadly burst with its more gracious time period to activate for the perfect opportunity, while Flame Lash doubles down on the sustained pressure path, giving the Dragonknight moments to relentlessly batter their opponent down with a reckless abandon. I might be switching morphs when this comes out. I want to at least try out Flame Lash and just spin to win. World in Ruin. This passive now increases your damage done by Flame and Poison by 2/5, rather than increasing your damage done by Area of Effect Flame attacks by 3/6 and reducing the cost of Poison by 12/25. This passive has been holding back the class in terms of PvE damage output for quite some time, pigeonholing it into unsynergistic and often redundant combinations. While the sustained portion of the effect of the stamina-based Dragonknights has some cool niche gameplay, we felt like it missed the mark as a general passive for this class. So, I like these changes. For a while, Dragonknight has kind of been the dumpster child. It's you play Dragonknight tanks and nothing else. These ardent flame changes, I think, go a long way for making DK more competitive. And I think both the World and Ruin change and the Combustion change are rather big changes to how they work. And I like this. I like these changes. This helps a lot. We have 2 more to talk about, though, in Earthenheart. Ash Cloud. Its ability and its morphs now cost 378 magicka every second while active, rather than having a massive upfront cost of 5,670, keeping their cost per second relatively the same, while removing a penalty of having to recast the ability aside from losing a global cooldown. His abilities now tick 15 times over the duration, down from 16, where the total damage or healing per cast remains the same. These abilities now last 15 seconds at base rather than 12, and these abilities now rank up at 1.1% healing or damage done per rank rather than 1 second. Eruption, the initial hits damage has a 10-second cooldown to prevent it from turning into an incredibly low-costing AoE spammable. They thought of what I was about to say. They thought of it. Dang it. Okay. So yeah, this is all in all, I think this is another good change. This combined with the complete lack of sustain on Dragonknights helps a lot. Because it's the same cost, but you don't have that massive upfront, and if you need to reposition it, it's not ridiculously expensive to do so. And finally, they evened out the numbers for Battle Roar, which is like a 6-point buff at max. No, it's 4. It's a total of 4 points gained. In grand total. But per point of ultimate cost. But that can lead up to a lot. And it also just means nice easy to grasp numbers, which is good. Necromancer Boneyard now deals more damage. more damage per tick, which should bring it back closer to back in line with what it dealt before update 30. Grim Focus now grants 1% damage done rather than 2% critical damage and healing. It was done to help ensure the class kept up in damage after the introduction of the critical potency cap. So way back here, because of this change, Nightblades no longer get 10% bonus critical damage and now get 5% damage done, which I think I'm okay with. Twisting Path now scales with a higher offensive stat. That's nice. This is the kind of thing you want to be scaling with your higher offensive stat, because it's a dot. It's 10 seconds. You're only casting this once every 10 seconds, whereas you're casting this once every second during that portion of your thing. So you need that to be cheap. And, your primary resource. Sorcerer got Storm Calling, which fixed an issue with the base ability was ending too soon. Same goes for Spear Shards. Backlash is now only visible to caster or enemies, and Cleansing Ritual now scales by approximately 17% since they take 6 times instead of 7 after the changes from update 30. Emerald Moss now includes the Healing Seed morphs. That's good. Mistform is now only against player attacks, which makes it a really good escape in PvP, but it makes it literally useless in PvE content. Because people were using this as a one-size-fits-all problem solver in PvE, which I understand why, but this was the main way to get people through Boss A's hard mode, right? Because Boss A's hurt so much. Pain Refuge is now 2% for every 2 negative stacks rather than 1 for every 1. It reduces the power and encounters against singular targets as it is meant to shine in outnumbered situations. And Shieldmaster now applies to Sun Shield and Crystalline Shield. Templar. I don't know where Crystallized Shield is from. Oh, it's that skill. The Warden one that gives you absorbs. Apparently that counts for Shieldmaster now. That's kind of cool. Cutting Defense. The damage from this node can now proc weapon enchantments or poison in effort to make it more enticing for tanks who wants to trigger these effects more reliably without dropping block. I don't remember what this node does. Does this thing have nodes? It's under Warfare. Right? Yep. You deal magic damage to attackers when they damage you with the direct damage ability within 7 meters. Okay, and that can now apply weapon enchantments or poisons. Which could be weakening or crushing, depending on, A, what bar we're on, and B, what enchantments we have. Or it could be, prismatic weapon glyph. Because I've seen a couple of people run the prismatic weapon glyph. Itemization and item sets. Fix an issue where some tooltips would display improper values by wearing combinations. Item sets that proc off damage shields would now work with hardening enchantments for consistency, as many of these sets were inconsistent with this behavior. Fixed an issue where many item sets that required you to drink a potion only worked when you were actively looking at another target. Okay, that's nice. Fixed an issue where many sets that required a critical strike could proc off of other procs. Okay. That should tell you where this is going. The following rules will now be followed with item sets where applicable and have been applied to all existing sets. Sets that grant weapon or spell damage now grant both physical and spell penetration, and weapon and spell critical now also grant both. So, Hunding's Rage and Law of Julianos now only differ in that one gives magicka and one gives stamina. This changes a lot of sets. So if we look at some dungeon sets quick. First off, Blood Moon is now weapon and spell damage, critical chance, critical chance. Same goes for Blood Drinker, though those aren't really sets you want to run on Magicka characters. Calderon's Legacy actually is a really interesting one. But this sort of thing is like legitimately enough to shake things up. Like Draugr Hulk, no, because it's not max stamina. But Dreg King Slayer, okay, it's major brutality, but not major sorcery. Dreg King Slayer is actually kind of a cool set. Should talk about it. Drozikar is not bad. But yeah, like, just from a glance, a lot of these sets are much more hybrid welcoming now. And like and I mean, here's the obvious thing. Crit. That's now critical chance. And here's the big one. This is now just straight critical chance. I am calling this now. This is the new meta set for every DPS on the planet. Every DPS is going to want Medusa, jewelry, and weapons on their front bar. Heck, if this actually goes through like this, and this now says critical chance, gain major force or gain minor force, I am legitimately going to standardize left of meta so that it's only Medusa as the starter set or as the baseline set. Because if this goes through, Medusa just as is a darn good just startup baseline, assuming we still want that decently high critical. As seen in recent updates, improving character hybridization has been a focus by the team in efforts to better bring to life the mantra of play what you want. This is another large-scale effort done to help better realize that statement. Item sets should empower you to get excited to build and experiment different things and fit into your character in a myriad of ways, and we hope this helps better do that. So this is kind of a crazy thing, right? Like, especially for Medusa specifically, like this now all reads as critical chance, which means, and the other thing is this is a heavy set, so we're already transmuting these to bloodthirsty, which means that all we do now is get melee weapons for that whatever set we're running. This is big. That's actually kind of cool. I like that change. And, bonus weapon and spell damage is also good on just a ton of other things. Item sets that scale off weapon damage, spell damage, max magicka, and max stamina can now again critically strike. Item sets that scale in order of magnitude or based on additional modifiers such as Reliquin or Zon will not. So, for example, Iceheart will now critically strike, but Zon will not. Viper's Sting will now critically strike, but Reliquin will not, etc., etc. So there is a very long list here. I'm not going to read all of them out, But basically, proc sets can now crit, which is cool and something that we want, that has been nice. I am going to read any of these that have extra notes. So Frenzy Momentum deals less damage and now grants 30 weapon and spell damage up to 10 times rather than 38 up to 5 times. So it deals less burst damage, but it now grants more resources. I really want to play with Frenzied Momentum. I don't know what to do with it. Merciless Charge has slightly less, does now deals slightly less damage and now ticks over 7 seconds rather than 5. Auroran's Thunder now lasts 5 seconds and ticks every second with a 10-second cooldown rather than 3 seconds every half second with a 6-second. Increase the damage by 94% per tick and increase the arc of the cone to 90. So this is now a higher damage set, which is cool, because this is the one that's like a cone of lightning out of your chest, which is a really cool effect, and I love it, but it's just kind of not been worth running. This is a set that I was pointing out earlier. Where is it? Called Darun's Legacy. It's when you get crits, when you deal crits with a single target, you launch a projectile that deals flame, frost, shock, or disease damage and applies their respective status effects once every 10 seconds, and it applies off the higher. It's a really, really cool ability, and it makes you feel, and it's one of those sets that really does, like, so a lot of sets are based off of a boss in the dungeon, right? Calderon's Legacy, Curse of Dolamesh, Pillar of Nirn, etc., etc. Calderon's Legacy is one that actually feels like the set. Calderon's Legacy also now procs off of light and heavies. Overwhelming Surge reduces the damage by approximately 3% per tick. Thundercaller reduce the initial damage by approximately 75% and increase the damage over time by approximately 19, and it ticks an extra time over the duration, but will properly respect line of sight. Monster Mask, Choked House Earthgore now better follows the standards for overtime effects and has a 2-second delay before it starts the heal. It also reduces the frequency to 2 seconds, up from 1, while increasing the healing per tick to ensure the total healing over the duration is approximately 5% less as intended. The tooltip now more accurately states the behavior of this set's healing sorting. Maw has increased damage, and all of its damage attacks are streamlined to deal the same DPS, and are now named Maw of the Infernal for easier tracking in the combat log. Yay! Spawn of Mephala has increased damage, but no longer snares. The last hit from Stormfist no longer bypasses spell resist, and Veladreth has reduced damage, which is good because it now doesn't. It probably deals more than it used to because it can now go through enemies. Overland. Venomous Smite now has a 2-second delay before dealing damage, rather than none, while increasing the damage per tick to ensure it meets its intended new value of approximately 5% less. PvP source, Domalexia's Mercy now heals for more. Galarian's Revenge reduced to the damage, and stat cooldowns now have a 0.5 versus 1. What does Galarian's Revenge even do? Deal damage with a lighter heavy. You put a Mark of Revenge. After stacking 5, they detonate for magic damage. You can only apply a stack every half second now. That's interesting. I mean, it's a big bomb. It's a big old bomb that you can build up on someone. Kind's Kiss now heal now scales off max stamina rather than a flat value. Stamina Restore is still based on the item level. Phoenix, Vice Cannon Venom, and Vicious Death, and Trials. All of these now scale as well. Now that with the hard cap of critical damage and healing, as well as the new rule set aim to diminish stacked item set burst potential, we're moving forward to re-enabling set items to critically strike. We decided to only target things that are made for builds that are already building higher than base critical chance, and have made additional changes to ensure they don't become outright better than flat stats. This should significantly help their viability of these sets in PvE, while maintaining the while many of the other targeted adjustments made should keep them reined in PvE, or PvP. We should expect these values or rules may change over time, and we will be keeping a close eye on it. Okay. So yeah, this is kind of pretty much buffs across the board from a PvE perspective. Item sets that deal bursts of damage in 4 seconds or less now have a 1 second window after proccing that prevents similar sets from activating. So item sets that have innate counterplay, such as delays, minimum travel times, waning telegraphs, have a 1 second or no cooldowns, are exempt. If wearing multiple of these sets, any action that would activate multiple sets will instead trigger the first set you equipped and suppress the others. After the set passes, you will be able to attempt to trigger them again. So this is stuff like Affliction, Ashen Grip, Dolamesh, Deadlands, Assassin, which also now has a 2 second delay. Defending Warrior, Hrothgar's Chill, which is the big one I see complaining stuff about. Krageth, Poison Serpent, Song of LeMay, Stormfist, Scales, Thunderbug Carabus, Thundercolor, Viper Sting, Way of Fire, and Winterborn. Reduce the vitality of stacking multiple proc sets at once and triggering them in high moments of burst. We've adopted a new style for sets that lacked integrated counterplay. These sets will now always prevent other sets on the list from activating in a single moment, reducing the ability to front-load damage into things such as heavy attacks or ultimates and insta-kill targets. This list can be expanded and adjusted upon in the future, and moving forward, item sets will be held under greater scrutiny in terms of ensuring that there are either moments of opportunity to avoid or outright prevention in terms of stacking. Cool. Charged has been is now over double to ensure it is more competitive with other traits in terms of effectiveness. Currently, this trait is being engaged with mainly by Dragonknights that try and get up as much sustain as they can, and we'd like this trait to be a bit more than a one-note wonder. Now it should help empower those crafty status effect builds out there and have some better synergies with effects that activate off of them. Okay. This is... I like this change. It is a rather big buff to the Brittle Warden, or the Brittle Bot in your party, as well as, I might try running this on Necro now that I'm looking at it, because getting all of the status effects just chaining, especially with like a poison glyph, when you're just dealing all these elemental damages over and over and over again, that could be very fun. I think I could have some fun with that. That's cool. Chaotic Whirlwind got a complete rework. So for those of you who don't know what that is the Asylum Sanctorum dual wield, which currently you envelop yourself in a destructive flurry of blades for 6 seconds that pulse outwards, striking up to 3 random enemies within 5 meters every second for physical damage. And it is a flat number, it is not a scaling number, so 2,675 at gold. Now, it grants a stack of Chaotic Whirlwind for 5 seconds after casting Whirlwind, granting 5% movement speed per stack and increasing your weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds by 6 for every 1% bonus movement speed you have, up to a cap of 450. There's some fun stuff we can do with that. It stacks but 5 times, and upon reaching 5 stacks, it doubles but cannot refresh, which is a pretty standard thing for this sort of thing. A Tempest of Chaotic... This current iteration was reworked back in 2019 to serve as a stopgap to give you the set some love, but ultimately didn't hit the marks we were going for. We wanted a set that enabled you to feel like the name implied, a tempest of chaos, wreaking havoc on the battlefield as you spun and won. The new iteration gives the chaotic feel as your movement speed goes up and down in the heat of combat with its offensive bonus, with some natural synergy built in to ensure you are always getting something. So it's 5 times 5 is 25. So that is plus 25 times 6. So let me pull up my phone. So with no other things buffing your movement speed, it is 150 bonus weapon damage, which is not bad at all. Uh, so how do we buff movement speed to get to that full 450? Major and minor expedition come to mind. Uh, there's probably other things. I'm sure we can figure something out. Actually, hilariously, this plus Wrath of Whitestrake might be a this Wrath of Whites and Wrath of Whitestrake with a Ring of the Pale Order might be a very, very fun build. Because Wrath of the Whitestrake, or Whitestrake's Wrath, also gives you speed buffs. Crafted, Assassin's Guile, fixed an issue where minor heroism granted by poisons was not properly buffed. Mechanical Acuity got some pretty big changes. This now grants a stack of Mechanical Acuity for 4 seconds when you deal non-critical damage, granting you 20% critical chance per stack up to once every half second. So after this effect ends or reaches 5 stacks, it cannot occur again. So 5 stacks, so that this will still get us there, but to that 100% that it used to, but it's slower getting there. I still think this is I still think this is good. I don't know how I feel about it, cuz we'll still get that burst of 100% crit chance, but it's going to take a while to build up to, and the more stacks we get, the harder it is to get them. That said, we might still be able to do it decently well with enough dots. But I almost don't know if we want to hit the cap. I think we want to sit around 3 or 4 stacks. Oh, that is weird. That is so weird. That's such a weird skill. That's such a weird set. I have to play with this. What are the other things in mechanical? Mechanical acuity, max stamina, max magicka, weapon, and spell damage. Okay, I think I like this as like an interesting little set, because once you get your first crit, you can just get the ball rolling. And you get your first crit, which gives you 20% critical. Your second crit gives you 40% critical, and then 60, and then 80, and then 100. But we need a little bit of X, and we're already sitting. I'm probably going to end up pairing this with Medusa. Oh, that'll be interesting. Oh, that will be interesting. I have plans. I have plans for this. It will be fun. Way of the Arena now also grants 165 weapon and spell damage. I don't know that set. Way of the Arena. Reduce the cost of break free. It also gives 165. Still not worth it. Uh, Elemental Succession. This set now grants its bonus randomly per element when you deal any source of flame, frost, or shock damage, rather than firing each bonus independently per element, which is probably a backline. This change was done to ensure its power is not outright better than the flat bonus version, such as Silks of the Sun, as well as to significantly reduce the amount of logic checks being done per second on the back end. All right. Elemental Succession. Max Magicka, spell damage, max Magicka. Whenever you deal flame, shock, or frost, you gain spell damage for that element for 4 seconds. Uh, each effect can occur every 4 seconds, and multiple effects can be active at once. So what this change means is that which one you get is randomized. So you won't get. So it's not always flame damage on a Dragonknight. I don't think this actually changes a lot of how I think about this set. It does mean I can't recommend it over Silks of the Sun for fire damage, or, you know, Ysgramor's Wrath for ice damage, etc., etc. But I certainly don't think it's bad. And I mean, the main reason I would use this would be on a Necro if I wanted to run something other that, if I wanted to run something slightly off meta, just to run something slightly off meta. I I still think this is fine, and I still think this is fine for that goal, because you'll still get all three. You just don't know what order you're getting them in. Mighty Glacier fixed an issue where the set was not proccing from potions and poisons. Worm's Raiment now has Magicka recovery rather than spell damage to match Hircine's Veneer. This does not change how we look at Worms at all. Thundercaller is now considered ranged properly. Updated some monster mask sets to use the correct terminology for their weights. Dama House now fires both its flame and physical damage rings at the same time at half the original damage, and grants weapon and spell damage while standing inside. It was done since it is now more common to have the same amount of weapon and spell damage, and before it defaulted to only picking the flame version if these stats were the same. That's kind of cool. That is a nice little upgrade for Dama House. I mean, Dama House was already really good. Dark Convergence deals less damage but scales more. Reduce the radius of the effect, and now pulls once after the delay, and now pulls all nearby targets rather than 6. Deadly Strike reduced this set's damage done bonus over time and channeled down to 15 from 18. Deadly Strike is worse yet again. I still think it's good. Wrath of the Imperium now grants weapon and spell damage for its 2-piece, and weapon and spell damage to range directed damage attacks for its 3-piece rather than spell critical and spell critical. Okay. So they changed Wrath, but Eagle Eye remains the same. Interesting. Chaotic Whirlwind now has an audio update, and Mantle of Sororia now procs only off of light and heavies. I don't think that changes any of those. I'd also like to point out that Chaotic Whirlwind appears twice, both up here and down here. They don't know what it counts as, which is funny to me. All right, fixed some facial hair adornments would be improperly removed when entering a crafting station, and character models would no longer drop when rotating down during character creation. That's kind of cool. Update the game audio with ambient specialization. This is all fixed an issue where waterfall sound effects were cutting off. We were backing out of certain collections menu, made no sound while in gamepad mode. Activating missing audio interactions with various buttons on character select. Jumping while crouched or in stealth will once again cause your footsteps to make sound. The Enchanting Certification quest now has hints telling you which runes do what when you get you to the trifling glyph of health if you don't already have them discovered. That's nice for newer players. Again, quality of life stuff. Guild tabards will now be properly equipped and are displayed in the character preview for the heraldry tab when whether you have a costume equipped or not. Outfits. Equipped outfit slots would fix an issue where they wouldn't save properly, while arrowheads and fletchings would not change the correct color when changing outfits. You can now purchase multiple of repeat purchasable items at a time. Outfit slots to the crafting category to the upgrades. Outfit tokens from crafting into upgrades, service tokens. Outfit styles into wardrobe. Account subcategory under upgrades into character slots and collector's packs. Armory slots is in upgrades as well. Pakruti no longer Pakruti no longer hitches into position if you open the crown crates window while moving. You will now joining encounter in progress to travel to a dungeon boss when it is engaged. This will eventually roll out into all existing dungeons, but below is a list that currently have the function added. Bloodroot, COA 2, thank goodness, Cradle of Shadows, Crypt 2, Darkshade 2, Elden Hollow 2, Falkreath 2, Fang Lair, Imperial City Prison, March of Sacrifices, Moonhunter Keep, Ruins, Scale Caller, Spindle Clutch 2, Wayrest Sewers, and White Gold Tower. Also in Crypt, Fulminating Void no longer affects player pets, thank goodness. This boss was frustrating enough without stuff like that happening. Sanctum. Reduce the damage and radius of the poison blast, which is triggered when your character dies while affected by spreading poison. Possessed Manticore, player characters dying in lava in the Serpent's Image Pocket realm will now be immediately teleported back to the fight space. Okay. Help files related to the events have been cleaned up, collated, and re-alphabetized. Old events that might be confused with new events that include this feature have been pruned. Jubilee. Fix an issue where using Jubilee cake mementos would not hide personality props in your hand. That's fun. Clapping with a book. Jester's Festival corrected Eridus references to the Jester's Festival instead of correcting it to Jester's Festival. White Strix. Change an error message to something more human readable when you attempt to use the Scroll of Pelinel's Fury off holiday. Cool. Fixed a large number of clipping, floating, sunken, or oddly placed harvest nodes, corpses, treasure chests, books, and critters throughout Tamriel. Some types of interactable objects are now easier to interact with a Melnir Way Shrine. Updated several descriptions of outfit styles to fit with their new description standards. Afflicted styles include Enequina, Armory, Blackfin, Blackreach, Outlaw, and Trinimac. Your character dies while using the Relic of the Sentinel. Your character will no longer maintain their increased size. Heavy sacks now drop potency runes of all levels / passive ranks. The tiers of runes that drop is based on either your current character level or crafting rank. Hopefully whichever is higher. Furnishings. Fixed an issue which caused certain continuously lit furnishings to lose their lighting when you exited and re-entered the arena. Fixed an issue with where previewing certain furnishings where they would appear to float above or sink into the floor. Fixed a minor issue with some features on the crow called in the Crow Totem Gruesome luxury furnishing. We're totally black instead of being properly textured. So this is housing stuff. I'm not going to read all of it. Guild vendor related system mails are now nearly instant, thank goodness. Rare crash associated with unload related to asset unloading that would be most commonly occurred while running through cities. You will no longer be able to find a replacement until the kicked leaving player has zoned out of the dungeon to lessen the likelihood of a new player being able to zone in. Okay. That's kind of nice, I guess. Made adjustments so that some monsters will now move much less sporadically while starting new paths. Fixed a large number of NPC postures that made them either float, stand in empty space, clip into objects, or path over furnishings, or path over fixtures. A bunch of issues where certain vendors and service NPCs were dealing with stage 4 vampires and transformed werewolves when they shouldn't. A large number of NPCs that didn't have appropriate reactions or behavior when witnessing crimes. Certain dead NPCs will no longer stand up after being interacted with. I want to see that, I want to see a recreation of that bug. I want to see that bug because that sounds hilarious. A bunch of camera placement issues in conversations so you aren't staring at so many knees, foreheads, or other awkward body parts. A bunch of VO timing people stop talking over one another. Feels like there should be a period there. Fix a bunch of typos, voice text inconsistencies, and various other text issues. Outlaw refuge doors in Rimmen, Lilmoth, Senshal, Solitude, Markarth, and Leowyn can now be properly quick to use while chased by the fuzz. That's a nice little thing. Alakir Desert, the shortcut door in Elrunes is now again properly sealed from the exit side. Renetta no longer sits on top of her tent in the military camp. The oldest orc. It's an issue where a wraith would appear to deliver lines upon picking up the wrong tile wasn't properly sticking around visually for the duration. Ben Karai fixed a number of presentation, placement, and animation issues with a quest. Move the Sky Shard and Hoizin's Folly outside so you don't have to do the quest to going inside the mine to acquire the Sky Shard. This is nice. Fix several issues with the Earth Turner and Snowborn house doors where you could enter while they were on fire and fires themselves were difficult to interact with. That's also nice. Pets and companions no longer despawn after running out of the Lightless Hollow. Craglorn, events would not reset properly when priests or enemies became stuck. Fix an issue where companions and pets would despawn after leaving the vicinity of the Bankarai Gate. Fix an issue where some scenes in Belkarth were not playing half their conversation. The Shattered and the Lost / the Missing Guardian fix an issue that results in 2 Haras being present while on both of these quests. The Grocery Moorhorn now shows up on the listings of vendors, and fix an issue where mobs would respawn too quickly at the Tribunal Temple. Angroth fix an issue where Rotten Root could respawn too quickly. Crosswitch Reclaimed fixed an issue where you could use the Resistance Fighter's signal outside of Crosswitch. Not that they'd come if you used it; they were miles away. And the Fall of Falshow fix an issue where your Camlorn Volunteer wouldn't spawn if you had a companion active. If you abandon this quest at the above step, it will no longer despawn your companion. Grotwood fixed some issues with Citygate and Haven that were really recently. I don't know what that word means. Making a problem worse to interact priorities. Fix an issue where your character could be detected committing crimes in Grotwood when no NPCs were nearby. The trees have ears! The Unquiet Dead fix an issue where you could get stuck in combat after using the Bone Scepter on the possessed soldier. Audience the Wilder King now properly displays zone quests, story pins, and the Witch of Sylvanar, the Eavesdropping Step are now Radiance pins for consistency. A novel idea: fix an issue where the Shimmering Barrier could not be found or used. For Malabel Tor, Reaper's March, Aniel and Tholmar could cause your companion to join them in sweeping. That's funny. The Price of Longevity. Fix an issue where Elemental Dust and Marathon's research notes would disappear from your quest inventory prematurely. Stonefalls. There are no longer 2 copies of this guy within sight range of each other as bestowers for the Crag and Morris quest. A Gathering of Guar. Fix an issue where you could keep zapping the poor Guars after you had already prodded them back to the pen, you monster. Opening the portal. Asking one of them to take you back and forth to Caldera once again works properly. Stormhaven. Fix an issue where companions and pets could despawn when running down the stairs. A Family Affair. Fix an issue where you could get into the farmhouse before you found the key. Stros Mackay. Like moths to a candle. Fix an issue where you could jump back and forth to make Lestra and Howler pop in and out of visibility at the end of the quest. That's kind of funny. The Rift. Fix an issue where some quest pins would sometimes try and bring you through non-accessible portals and Riften. Concealed Weapons. Fix an issue where Ayala could spawn inside a door and or wouldn't be interactable because the door took interaction priority. Fix an issue when you approached one of the houses, all the compass pins showed up below ground rather than on the door. And Werewolf. Fix an issue where you could remain in Hircine's hunting grounds after abandoning the quest. That's kind of funny. I live here now. This is my home now. UI made several improvements to navigation and gamepad UI with a mouse and keyboard. Keybinds will now also update to accommodate appropriate mouse keyboard iconography. Updated the icon for champion point achievements to match the new champion point trees. Renamed the item type keep recall stone to recall consumable. Clarified an error message that displays upon attempting to activate the default mount on a companion while it's already active. Made several improvements to messaging when using a service token, a character select, that allows you to preview your character with the collectibles active. Add a tooltip to appearance type to notify when the appearance type might be obstructed by a collectible. Update the collectible blocking tooltip visibility when preview changes. Activate keyboard support for a warning icon with a tooltip when viewing a slider type that its preview is potentially obstructed. Activated an error message for when a friend note doesn't save due to too many save attempts. Updated the alert message to display when attempting to travel to a player and the instance is full. I have literally never seen that. Fixed an issue where keybinds could appear disabled, enabled incorrectly in some situations. Oh, no, because this is like that dungeon is full or something like that. Added the ability to disable all add-ons and libraries at once rather than individually toggling each one off. Fixed crash that could occur by passing invalid parameters to the Get Smithing Refined Item API function. Fix an issue where the lowest value of minimum transparency on chat window would sometimes display as negative as below 0. Quest tracker could get stuck in a grayed out state. A lot of small bug fixes. Issue where reloading the UI while on the mail screen could cause your mail to not properly reload. Okay. Yeah, a lot of small bug fixes. A lot of good stuff here. So this is a rather large amount of changes that could very well affect the game in a lot of ways, and I am excited for them. I hope you all enjoyed this recap. I will put out the video on all this little in-between stuff because this is a lot of, like, tiny changes that don't do that much that I don't want to sit down and talk through right now because I wanted to get to the good stuff, and this recording is already 2 hours long. So, and this would be like another half hour of stuff. So that will be another recording. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please feel to like, comment, and let me know your thoughts on all of these new changes. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Until then, good luck, stay safe, and don't die.